We're talking this morning, our lead story about the government's long-awaited proposals to reform the private rental sector in England.
The Labour Party are also setting out their plans to overhaul the housing industry today, which includes a promise to build more homes. We're joined now by the party leader, Sir Keir Starmer. Morning to you.
Good morning.
OK, how are you going to do that? You're promising to guarantee to build 300,000 new houses every year. How's that going to happen?
Well, we're going to back the builders, not the blockers. And what's happened recently is the government's complete failure when it comes to house building. They took down targets for house building. That means that building will fall almost certainly to the lowest level since the Second World War, and that will kill the dream of home ownership for very, very many people across the country. And that's a very important dream. That's an aspiration, basic security. So what will we do about it? We will put those targets back up, but that on its own I don't think will be enough. We also need to fix the broken system because the planning rules don't work for building to take place. So we need to fix them, give local areas more control about where building takes place, and to create development corporations as the vehicle to drive house building, because for so many people that basic security of having your own home is for working people, this is a very, very important aspiration. It's about security, and so every house that we build is good for homeowners or want to be homeowners, but also good for our economy, kickstart our economy. So that's our ambition to, as it were, clear up the mess the government will leave and come into government if we're privileged enough to do so, and back the builders, not the blockers.
We've spoken to you on this programme before. You've spoken passionately about your environmental policies, but you are here suggesting that you would build on green belts. How do you square that?
Yeah, well, let me be clear. I mean, we all want to protect the green belt, and we've got fantastic countryside. I myself holidayed in the Lake District when I was a child every single year. I know how important that is. But we have to face up to the fact that we do already build on bits of the green belt. It's where we build. And I want to give you one example just to try to explain what I mean. In Maidstone, houses were built on a playing field rather than a car park, because the car park was technically in the green belt and the playing field wasn't. Now, I don't think anybody who cares about our countryside would think that's a good idea. So what I'm saying is, if we give local areas the power to direct where housing is, even when it's on the green belt, if it's a car park rather than the playing field, then I think that protecting the car park and building on the playing field was the wrong choice. And we would make those tough choices and say to local areas, you know, notwithstanding that it's the green belt, if it's a car park or similar land which, you know, doesn't affect the beauty of our countryside, which we all want to preserve, then we'll change the planning rules. We'll give you the powers to do that.
OK, let me give you a specific example. Your own Shadow Housing Minister, Lisa Nandy, has opposed homes being built on green belt near her own constituency, Wigan. Is she on board with this policy?
Yes, I was with Lisa Nandy yesterday. This is something that comes out of her department. But, you know, don't underestimate our absolute determination here to drive up house building, because for so many people, they can't get anywhere near the housing ladder. There'll be people watching this programme who desperately want the security of their own home. It really matters to working people. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a toolmaker, worked in a factory. My mum was a nurse. Sometimes we couldn't pay our bills, but we did, through a mortgage, own our own home. And I know what that security feels like, because as I was growing up, I didn't fear that we wouldn't have a roof over our head. And there'll be many people watching this who have that dream, that aspiration, want that security. They're being completely let down by this government now. Everybody knows that the age at which you're likely to own your home is just going up and up and up. And we want to turn that around, have that house building, take the tough decisions, and at the same time boost our economy, which of course is desperately needed.
You keep talking about the dream of home ownership, of buying a place. But for a lot of people at the moment, they can't even begin to dream about it. They can't imagine a day where they would do it. And they're right now renting. And they might be asking, you know, what are Labour going to do about the renters, the rental reforms the government's going to talk about? Are you forgetting the people who are renting and might always be renting?
No, not at all. We've set out a renters' charter which gives better protection, more security to renters. We set out what we would do. The government today is making an announcement through Michael Gove. I actually think what he's saying is broadly right and we would support it. So actually this is a step in the right direction. I do think that having promised it in 2019 they could have done it a bit more quickly, but look, it's right to give renters more security. I don't think that no fault evictions are right. They don't give security. So, you know, I'll broadly support what the government are doing today for renters, but there is a fundamental underlying issue here, which is rents are very, very high. And many people watching this will know this, take a huge amount of the monthly income that people have. One of the reasons they're so high is because we're not building enough houses, and there's too much demand in the rented sector. So yes, more rights for renters. I'm very signed up to that. Security for renters, it's very, very important. But if we don't get to grips, roll up our sleeves and get to grips with the house building that's desperately needed, those rents will remain high. So you make a bit more security in your rented accommodation, but the rentals won't come down.
Okay.
So we want to fix both bits of the market here. But, you know, the house building failure of the government is killing the dream for many people who simply want that security of their own roof over their head.
What about leaseholds? The government's been criticised a bit over the last week or two for watering down its plans to get rid of leaseholds. Would you scrap leaseholds? Will you promise that you can do that?
Yeah, there were some proposals in 2020 from the Law Commission that basically said that there should be more control on existing leaseholds and we shouldn't really be creating any new leaseholds. The government said they're right about that. Michael Gove said it's a great injustice, and now he said they won't do it.
But you would?
Because they've run out. We would do that. We would do that leasehold reform. And there's a pattern of behaviour here with the government which says it's going to do something, and then here we are, 4 years into a 5-year term, and they still haven't done it. And now they're basically giving up and saying, we've run out of road, sorry folks, we're not going to do it.
But what about what you say you're going to do, though? Because, I mean, you published your big pledges, your missions, 5 missions and priorities a few weeks back. Housing wasn't one of those. Is that a mistake?
No, I've already launched a number of the missions. There are 3 to go. And one of them is about opportunities for young people wherever they live in the country. And housing will be one of the pillars of that. So it is within the missions. The particular mission is one that I'm going to set out in detail in just a few weeks' time. So housing is central to that because, of course, it's almost impossible to do what we want to do, which is to turbocharge the economy, have the highest sustained growth in the G7. And to have the security and opportunity, which is within one of the other missions, if you don't have house building. So it's a central pillar to the delivery of the missions that I've set out.
We know you've said several times now that you would not want to renegotiate any Brexit deal. But this morning we're reporting a really important story here on the programme about car manufacturing. Vauxhall saying that they need the government to renegotiate part of that deal or else this country could face job losses in the car manufacturing industry. Would you renegotiate?
Well, look, I saw that story breaking this morning and my heart sank because, you know, we have led on car manufacturing for many years in this country. We shouldn't accept sort of the decline that comes with this story. Behind the story is the problem of supply chains, and one of the big aspirations of the next Labour government is to make things here in Britain so that the supply chain is here in this country.
So
and
what would you say to them?
I want us to be a leader. But on the specific question of the Brexit deal, look, we're not going to re-enter the EU. We do need to improve that deal. We need
so you would renegotiate?
Well, it comes up for renewal, and of course we want a closer trading relationship. Yes, absolutely do. You know, we want a closer trading relationship. We want to ensure that Vauxhall and many others can not just survive in this country, but thrive in this, because there are jobs bound up. There'll be families watching this morning, either employed at Vauxhall or similar places, deeply worried about what this means. So yes, we need a better Brexit deal. We will make Brexit work. That doesn't mean reversing the decision going back into the EU, but the deal we've got, it was said to be oven ready. It wasn't even half baked. So of course we've got to repair that, along with all the other things that we'll have to repair if and when we're privileged to come into government.
So how would that work? What would you change?
We need to make a closer relationship. Where there are barriers, we need to tear them down. There's too much by way of barriers. But I mean, for Vauxhall, the issue will be, of course, the supply of materials and parts coming into the country that then have to be assembled here into a car. The more barriers you put in the place of that coming in swiftly at the right time at the right place, the harder you make it for Vauxhall. I've been to see this for myself. I know how time critical it is that those parts all arrive at the factory at the precise time that they are needed. And it's breaking down those barriers that are critical. And that's what we'll be focused on, making Brexit work for businesses so that they can thrive, not just survive, and through that, the jobs that are so important for very many families watching this.
Before you go, can we just talk about tuition fees? I know there are lots of young people who are doing their exams at the moment, thinking about maybe going to uni. The last election, Labour pledged to scrap tuition fees. You've now scrapped that promise, and you've had a lot of kickback from young people who think you just don't understand the issues that they're facing.
Oh, I do understand. I've got nephews and nieces who are carrying, just as many others are, the huge burden of loans. And I think the system is...
tuition fees, then?
Well, look, I understand the problem. I do think the current system is unfair, and we will change it and make it fairer. So we will change things. We're not going to sit back and accept the status quo. The question is whether we can get rid of, and go back to the old model of the state paying all of the fees. And frankly, after the damage that's been done to our economy and looking at the numbers, we've had to say that we don't think that option is viable anymore. And this is an example of, I think, the very difficult decisions that, if we do come into government, we'll have to make, because the Conservatives have smashed the economy. The damage they did in that mini-budget last year, we're all still paying the price. And that has meant that tough decisions will now have to be made. We are committed to making the student loan scheme fairer and better, because at the moment it doesn't work well for students. It doesn't actually work very well for universities either. So we do need to fix that.
We will talk again about how you might fix that. We have to finish now, but Sir Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us on Breakfast.
Thank you.